apologies. We're working on a kind of guerrilla system for me, so you're on my cell phone. But thank you all so much for bearing with us this morning. Now, we are going to have a presentation. Obviously, we're going to be talking about where to find remote jobs that you can do from anywhere. Now, before we go into those, kind of jump into the meat and potatoes of today's event, if you would go to the next slide, I'd love to get y'all comfortable and familiar with our quick code of conduct. Now, this is a lot of legalese, but basically what it boils down to is don't be a jerk, okay? Just operate from a place of kindness and respect, and it's pretty hard to go wrong from there. If you have any further questions on this, you want any details, you can always DM us in the chat. You can DM me. I think you'll be able to find me under Meg's Mobile. Apologies. But if you have any, anything like that, please let us know. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. All right, next slide, please. Now, as we go through today's event, this is some quick housekeeping. This will be especially important if today is your first event with Power to Fly. And if that's the case, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you today. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers. So whether today is your first event or your 50th, we are incredibly happy to see you and so grateful that you chose to spend time with Power to Fly today. Now, what you need to know about Power to Fly events, whether it's your first or your 50th, is participation. Now, we want to enable you to participate in a number of ways, whatever makes you feel most comfortable. The first thing that I recommend is turn those cameras on. Share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. Now, there is no need to be Instagram perfect to do this, y'all. Obviously, your dry shampoo, banana clip is totally great. People bring their, furry coworkers. I don't care if you are in a 3-piece suit or your bathrobe. It makes no difference to us. We just want to meet you where you are. Now, the big thing to know about today's event is we're recording. We're also live streaming. Hi, YouTube. So what that means for all of you is you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with Michelle, and not have to worry if you missed a resource or a reference listed, because you can always go back and refresh later. Now, since we are recording, what that means is that everybody that gets or everybody that registered for today's session, so whether you were able to join us at the moment of the hour or not, everybody is going to get an email from Power to Fly. It's going to come to you in probably about 4 to 5 business days, and it's going to have a link to where you can rewatch this recording on our website. Now, let's say that Michelle shares something so mind-blowing, unbelievable, that you cannot wait to share with a friend or coworker or a relative. You don't have to wait the 4 to 5 business days. So like I said, we are live streaming to YouTube. And what that means for you is that usually by the end of business today, the video will be posted to our YouTube, and you can always head over there and grab some links, share them around with whoever you think could best benefit from this information that you're going to learn today. Now, as we go through, if you have questions, we would love to answer them. So with the code of conduct in mind, let's make sure that we're being kind and respectful. I'm going to encourage y'all to ask questions in the chat. Keep that chat hopping. I'm also really going to encourage y'all to dive in and let us know where you're joining us from. That way we can kind of get the chat moving. I'm always really eager to see how far our global audience spreads. So please feel free to let us know. I'm coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that belonged to the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area. So please feel free to let us know where you're calling in from and if you know whose land you're on. Now, as we go through this upcoming event, we do want to hear from y'all with those questions. So if you've got questions, please feel free to send those along in the chat. And if you would like a question asked or a comment raised and you want to be kept anonymous, no worries. You're just going to DM the question to me, to Meg Mobile or Meg's Mobile, whichever it displays. And that way I can ask your question and keep you anonymous. Now, obviously today we are here going to talk to Michelle about remote work. Now, Michelle is here on behalf of her employer. So Michelle, I'm going to turn the floor over to you to let us know a little bit more about your role with Remote Rebellion. Now, Michelle Coulson is our guest. You can see a bunch of information about her from her bio on the page there. But Michelle, could you tell us where you're based, how long you've been with Remote Rebellion, and maybe what you like to do outside of work?
Hey everyone, how's it going? So to start with, I'm in Manchester, UK at the moment. As some of you might be able to tell from the accent, it's dimmed a little bit. I'm not based in the UK, I'm from here, but I split my time between Thailand, Bali, Bulgaria, and other parts of Europe, depending on the reason for choosing another location. So I actually started Remote Rebellion. It's my company. I started it in 2021. So for the last 3.5 years, I've been helping people to get remote work, and I absolutely love what I do.
Very cool. I love to hear it. Now, is there anything that in your background that really connects you to the material here? Like, did you study abroad? Did you want to work abroad? What should people know about your connection to our subject today?
Yes, it's a good, and I didn't cover your what do I like doing in my spare time as well. I guess this all ties in nicely. Like ever since an early age, I've always been passionate about traveling. I used to just like devour maps and read about travel blogs and just I was always obsessed with traveling. So I did a tourism degree at university, and I left uni and avoided getting a real job for as long as possible. So I traveled doing all kinds of random jobs, and like I worked at a dog kennels in Australia. I worked in a burger shack. I cleaned boats. I did all sorts I could to travel and keep working, earning money as I went along.
Okay.
And then I got to my late 20s and I got the pressure to grow up and get a real job and start working in a professional way. And I'll get more to my story later, but essentially it that prompted me to like, okay, I have to get a proper job now. I have to stay in one place. I have to save for a house. I have to do this and that's just what you do when you get to your 30s, right? So I kind of went into that. I got engaged. I was saving for a mortgage. And then suddenly I woke up, I was like, I don't want any of this. Like, this is not me. And for the last 7 years, I'd been working in London, going to work every day with these grey faces in the grey sky, and I'm just like, what, this is not me at all. I am the pink hair, the purple hair, the person who doesn't conform. I am not the one who puts on a suit and says yes sir, no sir, in a corporate environment. So again, I'll get to my story later, but I love anything around the ocean. I love to keep fit. I do CrossFit. I love surfing, trying different water sports. I just like trying new things. That's why I've never been really great at one sport, because I see something shiny over here. I'm like, I'm going to try snowboarding now, because even though I'm okay at skiing, and I'm going to do this. So yeah, I like trying new things.
The ADHD in me sees you and recognizes you hard. I know how to ski. I know how to wakeboard. I've like tried soccer. I think the only thing I didn't try was like baseball or softball, maybe. And then like hockey was squarely, because I'm almost 40, so hockey was squarely a dude's thing. There was no, like, it was not a thing that they were gonna let me do. So, but I love that. I'm very similar of like, that looks fun. Let's try that. Let's learn how to do blah,
Exactly.
blah, blah. Yeah.
I'm definitely, I think I'm undiagnosed ADHD. Many people have said you need to get tested. I'm like, I'll just go with that. It's maybe.
I maintain that either almost everyone has some form or is on the spectrum in some way, or you've just met a lot of very, very, very intentional people, because like I'm telling you, there's so much of this world that is not built for people with ADHD. And then you realize how much of the world isn't built for most people. And you're like, oh my word. All right, y'all. Okay, we'll stop with the gabbing and turn the floor more over to Michelle and myself. We have a bunch of questions that we want to go through today. Obviously, we only have a short amount of time, but I want to make sure that we hit the questions that interest all of you. So you came here, you are here live with us today. We want to make sure we reward you for that. So please, please, please feel free to reach out, ask questions, all that kind of stuff. I'll be monitoring the chat also as we go through Michelle's presentation. So yeah. Take it away.
No, classic unmuted. There we go.
So sorry. When I have my multi screens, I can usually spot that. I'm sorry.
glad I got in there. There needs to be like a red flame coming up saying you're muted. Stop. That needs to be introduced. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining. I know there's webinar after webinar, masterclass after masterclass, and you never really know what is a good use of your time. But I'm really excited to be here today. And as Meg said, do get involved. I won't be reading the chat because I want to fully focus on the presentation I'm giving, but there's going to be plenty of time to ask questions. So if something pops into your head, drop it in the chat and we'll get to it later. So let me check. So first of all, just want to check that you can see my screen on there, that is okay. Okay. So your time is precious. I want to ensure that you're not wasting your time on something that isn't relevant for you. So this is for you if you have worked remotely before and are actively applying for remote work again, whether that's free time, freelance or full time, or if you know that a remote job is what you want, but you don't know where to start. And this is not for you if you are just thinking about working remotely, and you're not sure, maybe I do, maybe I don't. I'm not here to convince you that remote work is for you. This is really for people that, yep, remote works for me. I want to know a bit more how to do that. Okay. So the question really is, are you committed to this goal? Because it's not easy to get remote work. For those of you who've been searching for remote work in the past, it's not something simple. So if you're just like, man, I'm going to dip my toe in and see if it's for me, you're going to waste a lot of time because it's difficult and it's something you need to commit to. So if the answer is yes, then you are in the right place. See if there's any drop-offs right now. Can't see any, so it looks like the brief has been. My two goals for this masterclass are to show you that getting a remote job or freelance work is possible, and the fastest and easiest way to reach your goal of working remotely and how to do that. And as a thank you gift for everyone who stays until the end, because I know that our attention spans are minimal, ADHD folks in the house. I wanna give a reward to those of you who stay to the end because the information you're going to get is valuable. You'll get a list of remote first companies at the end of this presentation. Are you ready?
Ready as we'll ever be.
Awesome. Now I've invested a lot of time into this class. All I'm asking for in return is for your attention for the next 45 minutes or so. So if you want to get your notepad ready, even though it is recorded, some people prefer a notepad, that's fine, whichever way you prefer, and get ready to take action on the things you're learning. So I started out in recruitment. I've been in recruitment for over 10, 11 years now. I've worked in and hired across 6 continents, and I've enabled over 150 people to land their ideal remote job. Now, I say dream remote job because it sounds nicer for marketing, but really, dream is a little bit of a stretch. Not everyone wants their dream job. They just want to they want to be able to earn enough. They want to like what they're doing, and they want to do something that they're good at and that they can be better at. And as I mentioned before, I love the ocean. I didn't always have this life though. So there's a photo of me on the left there. This is me working as a recruiter in an office in London back in 2014. I lived in a tiny, expensive flat. I had to squeeze myself onto this tube at rush hour to get to the office. And I had a good job. I was earning money. I was earning decent money, but I was unhealthy mentally and physically. I drank a lot. I had friends, but I didn't have any real community. And I felt like I was just existing. So when 2020 came down, when 2020 happened, with lockdown, I was forced to work from home. And suddenly, without all of those distractions of the busy life, going to the pub, going to the theatre, I had time to stop and think about what it was I really wanted. And I realized that city life was making me miserable. And my happy place is by the sea. It's like in the water diving, it's by the water surfing, it's being close to the ocean. And the times that I felt I'd been happiest was when I had a real community, either at university or whether I'd been working abroad or something. A friend of mine invited me to go to Bali and said, hey, the office that you're working in is locked down. Why don't you come and work from here for a little bit? And I was like, okay. So 2021, the borders opened slightly. I booked a flight and I figured I'd work from Bali, seeing as though the office in London I worked at was still closed. And I was happy to do this and had in my head, I'll do this for 2 months and then I'll go back to the real world and to that life in London. But I fell in love with the island. I fell in love with my life. I was surfing in the morning before work. I was getting 8 hours of work done and probably way more productive because I was just so happy. And the people I was surrounding myself with as well had really interesting things going on and they thought differently. They didn't just go with the norm. They were my people and they had a different perspective. And I didn't have that in London. And then 2 months later, the call came from my boss. Michelle, the office is opening. You need to come back to London. And I felt sick at the thought of having to go back to the city, to the grey. UK is not well known for its decent weather. And that awful commute and having no life outside of work. This is pretty much what I look like. And I didn't want my freedom and lifestyle taken away from me. So I decided to quit and stay in Bali. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I would find a way. And honestly, I didn't think it would be that hard to find another job. But getting a fully remote job was much harder than I expected. I didn't have a strategy or a structure in place. I spent months scrolling on LinkedIn and other job boards, and I kept coming across jobs that said remote, but they weren't remote at all, which sure some of you have already had, and it drives me insane. So if they were remote, they were restricted to a specific country, and I had to be in the UK. And all of these roles had hundreds and hundreds of applications to them, and it was really disheartening. It was frustrating sending out dozens of applications a week, getting rejection emails. And that's if I was lucky to even get a response as well. So there's a lot of ghosting going on. I'm sure if you're here, you're feeling that as well. And I didn't know where I was going wrong because no one gave me feedback, and I was demotivated. I was getting into this spiral, and I started to wonder if it was actually possible. And I hadn't struggled to get a remote job before. Sorry, I hadn't struggled to get a job in the past, but something had changed, and I'd started losing this confidence, and started to question my skills and my abilities of, the inside voice of what's wrong with me? Why does no one want me? Yeah, it sucked. And there was a lot of information out there, but a lot of the so-called advice was conflicting, and it was confusing, and I was almost ready to give up and ready to just like pack my bags and go back to London and tail between my legs. Then I had an aha moment. I put myself back into the shoes of my recruiter days, and I broke down the steps, and I broke down the steps that I found the perfect candidate. And I basically reverse engineered it and engineered the process and a real strategy to find remote work. And then just a few weeks later, it happened really quickly, actually, having this aha. I implemented the steps, and I landed 2 freelance roles as a recruiter helping remote first startups to hire. The best bit was that I could work from anywhere, I could stay in Bali, and I can go visit my family in the UK for as long as I wanted. So I was just like you before, even with my background in recruitment, some of these might sound familiar. The aimless scrolling on LinkedIn, the finding mostly hybrid jobs, spending loads of time adjusting your CV and even more time applying, and basically anticipating those rejection emails. And the ghosting was just a kind of norm. I want to tell you it's not your fault. The job market is competitive. It's extremely competitive now, especially for remote work. So these stupid dinosaur companies that are insisting on this return to office, and this graph is showing you that just 9% of jobs on LinkedIn in 2023 were remote. And 43% of all applications go to these 9%. So it's a supply and a demand issue. It's not because you're suddenly terrible at what you do or that you don't know how to write a CV or application. You're just competing with a lot more people. But that doesn't mean that you should give up on your dream to work remotely. It just means that doing the same things that you've done in the past won't work and won't give you the same results as before. You need a better approach. You need a strategic way to get ahead of the competition and to stand out. So that's why, even though this presentation is more on how to find remote jobs and find the job specifically, once you've found them, you need to know what to do with it then. So I've covered a little bit on this here. This is a common myth that people will say, well, there's no fully remote jobs for me, not in my industry, they don't exist. And this is a truth that we tell each other. And of course, not everything can be done remotely. But someone said to me, like, yeah, well, I'm not going to be able to get a remote like doctor or nursing job. I just helped a nurse get a 100% remote nursing job. So they do exist. It's just finding a way to tweak the experience that you do have. And believe me, I thought the same too, because when all you're seeing is the opposite, you don't know any different. Yeah, so I felt that same as well until I realized that I had to look outside of the usual places. I couldn't rely on LinkedIn, as that's where everyone goes. Everyone thinks about LinkedIn, thinks about getting a job, they go to LinkedIn. So I started researching, and I discovered a whole load of places to find 100% remote and work from anywhere opportunities. I connected with remote work advocates, with remote first companies, and I uncovered a whole bunch of places to find remote work that wasn't in these standard places that you may have heard of. So the things that I did before was wasting hours, trying to figure out which jobs were really remote, competing with hundreds of people, and spending money on job boards like flex jobs with no results. And I got flooded by scammers on LinkedIn, and my inbox was full of rejection emails. That was what I did before, and that was the hard way. So I want to show you the new way, the more effective way. Who wants to see it? Got a hand there. Love that. That's why it's great when camera's on. Thank you. Thank you, Gloria. I mentioned earlier, you need to really diversify where you're looking for remote jobs. And some of these other well-known job boards won't cut it because that's where everybody goes. So there's over 150 specialist job boards with a remote work filter. You don't have to just look at remote job boards. You can get really specific on your particular industry. You can see the list here of just these are just a list of what, like 10, 15. There's over 150 of these. They get super specific. There's a job board for startups, for designers, education, social impact, space for women, specifically women in sales. There's a job board for vegans, people of color. There is literally a job board for every discipline or every certain type of person. So, and not all of them will have a remote work filter, but there's at least 150 of them that do. Then the next thing to do in the 5 hidden places to find these remote jobs is to look at it the other way. Rather than going looking for jobs, look at remote first companies. So find remote first companies. There's over 1,000 of them. I know that might be hard for you to believe, but there are over 1,000 remote first companies. And sorry, there's lighting in here. It's a bit annoying. Let me change this slightly. There we go. Like some kind of angel coming down. So of these 1,000, there are at least 250 companies that allow work from anywhere. They're just the ones I know about. I'm sure there's way more out there. So instead of searching for the jobs, hoping that they're remote and wasting time on the ones that are not, target remote first organizations and see what opportunities they have. And if they don't have anything available right now, reach out to them and submit open applications. Make sure you do this the right way though. So make sure you make a good first impression when you do that initial reach out. What was I going to say on that? Oh, I talked about the work from anywhere ones. That's good. Conscious of time. I want to make sure that we've got plenty of time for questions. So when I was a recruiter, I used Google Advanced Search, Google X-ray searching to hunt, stalk, and find candidates. Basically, I was going to find candidates. I figured I could use this in reverse, like I mentioned before, to help people find remote jobs that are really specific. So you can use what's called Boolean searching for the developers out there. You might have used this before. So use this searching with the speech marks, your job title, interest. You can use a minus mark just to omit results as well. What you'll find here, you won't necessarily find these jobs on job boards. Companies have to pay to be visible. So the companies that don't have that money necessarily, the smaller organizations, will not be as visible on LinkedIn because you have to pay for LinkedIn, and they'll not be as visible on these job boards. So this uncovers jobs that can be found in a company's ATS, so their applicant tracking system. You may have heard of Beat the ATS. This is what all of these CV resume writers that are trying to sell you a CV template will talk to you about. Don't even get me started on Beat the ATS. There's no such thing. So this means that if you find these jobs, these will get fewer applications, so you're not competing with the same number of people. I know you're probably thinking, how do I do Google Advanced Searching? I could spend a whole session or week on Google Advanced Searching, and I want to make sure I get to everything else so I can answer some specific questions later. But just know, if you can get really, it's a little bit like investigating. I used to really enjoy trying to do this to find the perfect or ideal candidate for the roles I was searching for. So you can do it the other way. Then there's the 4th place, which is networking. You probably heard this again. The way to get a remote job is via networking. And it gets thrown around a lot. And the people often approach it the wrong way. And they make a few connection requests with AI, with ChatGPT on LinkedIn, and wonder why they're not getting responses. They go to a few events and they just ask for something. Have you got a job? Have you got a job? And they say, oh, well, I'm networking, and it's not working. It's because you're not going around about it the right way. So if you do it the right way, not only can it dramatically increase the number of opportunities that you find, but when it's done right, it can increase your chances of getting the job as well, because people refer people and they will overlook you not having the specific experience that they're looking for in this job if they like you, or if someone else has said, hey, Meg's great, you need to hire her. I'm like, okay, I trust this person. I trust their opinion. I'm going to get her in because I can't be bothered applying. I can't be bothered putting my job out. I can't be bothered going through the applications. Hiring managers don't want to go through this process. I know it sounds crazy when they put you through 6 rounds of interviews, etc., but they don't want to take the time to find the right people. If someone can say, Dave over here is great, he worked with me in the past, we're like, get Dave in. I've hired most of my team at Remote Rebellion through referrals, and it's been fantastic. I've got Lucia working with me now, who she was a referral from her cousin who worked with me. And she said she's got no experience doing any of the things that you need her to do, but she's great and she'll figure it out. I'm like, get her in. And she joined. So it does work if someone can refer you in and vouch for you. Then the next for the diversifying the effort, I guess the networking piece is so important. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about this. That 70% of job vacancies are filled via networking. So it's not just enough to apply and wait for something to happen. So as well as connecting with those people on LinkedIn the right way, join groups, join communities, attend events both in person and online, and look up from your phone now and again. You never know who you might meet. Someone actually interviewed with a guy she met on a plane. I can't remember where she was going to, but she ended up getting chatting to him on the plane next to her. I hate talking to people on planes, but like, if it's your thing, then you never know what is around the corner, who you're going to meet. Then the fifth place to find hidden remote jobs is on private communities. So these kind of communities will vary. They'll either be on social media platforms, or on Telegram, on Slack, specific event pages, and they can be discipline specific, such as women in sales. You can have a Telegram community or industry specific, such as Mind the Product for product managers, and that is a Slack group. And you can add filters and preferences so that you don't get bombarded by lots of notifications, because I know it can be super overwhelming when you're in all of these different platforms. You've got your WhatsApp, you've got your email, you've got LinkedIn and Slack, and it can be overpowering sometimes. So I personally turn off all notifications and try and time block so that I can check it once a day. I don't always do this, don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect, but it does help to try and calm the mind a little bit, the notifications at least. So as you can see, it's not that these fully remote opportunities don't exist. There's lots of them out there. You just need to know where to find them. And that's why I call it the 5 hidden places to find 100% remote work or remote jobs faster. I know there's been a lot of information to take in, and I've gone quickly on purpose because I know that some people have really specific questions. The reality is there's a lot more to this to take in than this short 30 minutes. So I've put together a special program I've given you a scan code so you can find out more about how I work with Remote Rebellion later on. So I want to know from you in terms of, oh, sorry. I want to know from the chat, actually, from those of you, and we'll get to this a little bit later. It'd be interesting to hear, Meg, how many people are actually have worked remotely before and want to do it again, or how many people are completely new and are just like, I really want to do it, but I'm not too sure how, and I want to get that remote role. Do we have
Yeah,
a
let's throw it up in the chat, y'all. Give me a 1 for the first choice. So what was the first choice? You've never worked remotely at all?
yeah, so first, I've never worked remotely at all, but want to, or other people who've worked remotely and want to do it again.
That's 2. So give a
Yeah.
1 or a 2 in the chat, y'all. Oh my gosh. Lord, y'all. Okay, apologies for the video. It's about to get real weird because I'm on my cell phone and you're on a tripod, and it's a whole thing over here.
That's all good.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, it looks like the majority are 2s by about 2 to 1, it looks like.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
so a lot of people have worked remotely before.
Yeah. Maybe
Okay.
even during COVID as well, which is quite common for a lot of people. They're like, why can't I go back to that? That was great, you know?
I'm telling you, man, like I got very lucky. I went remote with Power to Fly for my first ever remote role in 2019. So I was
Wow.
remote for a full year before we went into COVID. And so I knew what it was like to
Yeah.
onboard while remote as a normal course of business. And then I even saw what it was like to onboard people remotely while we were in COVID,
Mm,
which, I mean, other than like in-person events, didn't really change our business model terribly. And so it was one of those things of like, once people kind of saw that the grass honestly is greener, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. They've
yeah.
been lying to you when it's like about productivity and blah, blah, like, no.
Company
Um,
culture. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Chris is chiming in saying, I went remote in 2019 and I've never looked back. I'm trying to take the next step into remote work from anywhere role. Let's see. Analia has never done it before, but is really excited to give it a try. Yeah, looks awesome.
Awesome. Yeah,
Okay.
I actually I started working hybrid back in 2017 because I was working for a software development company and I was starting to reach out to people. And that was back in the heyday for developers when they had the power. They're like, what are you going to offer me? You know? And so I would call up these developers and say, hey, we've got this role and we're paying this. And they're like, is it remote? I'm like, I can ask. And more people were asking for it. So I actually ended up nagging my boss at the time and saying, we need to introduce this. People are asking for this. So it took a year of nagging and I got there in the end. And I eventually asked him if I could work remotely from South America for 5 weeks. And that was like a little trial in 2018. So
Wow.
I think it's doing it gradually and you know, pushing your luck a bit and sometimes asking for forgiveness instead of permission can work as well.
I'm always reminded of oh, there was a guy works in finance that put up a TikTok video I think it was like 2 years back, about how he just waltzed into an office when his company moved buildings and there was an empty office on his floor and no one went into it. And so he just like moved his stuff in there. And 2 years went by before he had a name tag. He had like a nameplate on the side, like
That's
seriously, before
crazy.
anyone came in and asked. And it wasn't even, it was like his manager's manager was like, who put you in this office? He goes, it's an office. I just sat down. And he was like this whole big thing. And they were just just livid. But it was also like, it took you 2 years to notice. Like, where did you think he was sitting?
That is awful.
I
It's
couldn't believe
hilarious
it.
though.
But yeah, so I very much second it's easier and sometimes way more fun to ask for forgiveness than approval going forward.
Yeah, it's like you didn't tell me I couldn't do this,
Yeah,
so
you didn't outline it specifically, so clearly it
yeah.
wasn't top of mind for you.
We're on the same page.
Yeah. Okay.
So I realize I come to the end of my slides. I want to put this on here for people to scan. As promised, those of you who stay to the end of the presentation, you get this list of 30 remote companies. So this is just part of the list of 1,000 that I have as part of the Remote Job Academy. But for those of you who want to scan, you will get that.
Okay. Sounds good. Now we have you for what, about another 10 minutes?
Uh-huh.
All right, sweet. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into questions. Now I'm going off of questions that were pre-submitted at registration. So stuff that y'all asked when you were signing up for to attend this chat. But I want to prioritize everybody that took time to be here with us live. No hate to anybody. I know we got busy schedules, but if you are here with us live, we want to prioritize and reward you for that. So if you have a question, please feel free to throw it into the up on my screen, and I'm like keeping eyes peeled. You can also DM me if you would like to keep yourself anonymous. All right, let's see here. Okay, what type of networking do you recommend with these companies? All right, this is something that I was listening in. I mean, obviously listening the whole time, but I was thinking to myself when we were talking about networking events and how like if you just show up and go, it's like, oh, I went to the thing and it's not working.
Mhm.
When you say networking, what does that mean to you? Because I have learned in 5 years of interviewing about these subjects, it means something very different to a
Mm.
lot of different people. So for you, what would you think when you say like networking?
Essentially being in the room with people that you will learn from or build connections with.
Mhm.
So it's really hard, especially if you're out of work and you're quote unquote desperate to find work. It's really difficult because, of course, you're going to go in there with like, give me a job, God damn it, I need work. So it's
Mhm.
really, I understand when I say this, when I say to people, try not to show that you're desperate even though you're desperate. It's easier said than done, but go in with an open mind of learning and contributing as opposed to just going in with what can I get out of this. And that's when I would say of showing up in the room with relevant people. So for me, I will attend events if I'm just interested, like I will go to nomad events, not necessarily to be like, oh, I'm going to get new clients from this event. I'm like, I want to learn about why people are doing what they're doing. I want to learn what the latest accommodation trends are. Like I'm in that space, I'm interested in it. So doing something that you're surrounded by people that are interesting, that are going to elevate you or could potentially help you in your career as well. It doesn't have to be going out always meeting new people, but neither does it mean just networking in the space that you already have. When I say where to network, In-person events are as important as online events. And I know if you're introverted, it can be a little bit more difficult. But if you can put yourself out of your comfort zone to attend one a month or whatever that looks like and setting yourself a target, it will really help. Because if you can have that face-to-face interaction with someone and they can see the whites of your eyes, as they say, it does make that difference. I've worked with people in the past because I met them at an event, and then years later we ended up collaborating or doing an event together. It helps you stay in someone's mind. I have so many video calls. Sometimes I forget I've even spoken to someone on a video call. Whereas if I met them in person, I will remember them. So I think having both is quite important.
No, I think that's a really good question to address because a lot of times when we say networking, people only think of like the hotel banquet room with past apps, and you're just standing there waiting for whatever. If if it's like an industry dinner or something, or you're at a bar, but you're not going to try and get like inebriated because you're there with coworkers, blah blah. So it becomes this very weird like social thing that you're also trying to like gamify, I guess. But like that's not the only way you network, and networking doesn't only happen at those events. You know what I mean? Like when we talk about networking for me means making business buddies. It's
Yeah.
literally what it is.
Yeah.
You're friends in business. You're creating a relationship with that person. And it does not have to be based on anything more substantial than, oh my God, I also watched that show of the Funko Pop that you have on
Yeah.
your desk.
Yeah.
The smallest openings, y'all.
Yeah.
Connection is
It's
all
true.
it really.
Yeah, I can confirm that one of the women who reached out to me on Instagram, she said I'm going to be at the Running Remote event in Lisbon. This is a good event for those of you in the US. It's happening in Texas at the end of April. I'm not affiliated. It's just a really good event. So if you can't afford the ticket to get in, you can apply to be a volunteer. So it's a really good way. If you can't afford a ticket price for a really important event, apply to be a volunteer there. It's one of the best places to get known in the space. So anyway, this woman, Danny, she reached out to me and said, oh, I love what you're doing. I'd love to speak to you at Running Remote. I see you're going. And then we meant to have business chats the whole time. And we just ended up talking about dating. We just were talking about the highs and lows of dating. And we're like, this is really unprofessional. We didn't cover any business stuff.
So
Um,
you're connecting. You're
yeah,
connected. Again, that's the thing, is it's this camaraderie, right? You don't, granted, if you're only talking to, your break room bestie and it's strictly about, my references are too old, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. So if it's strictly about that and it's only ever about that, like maybe it's not strictly networking, but you are still building a relationship that you will call on later. It
yeah.
doesn't matter what field that interest is based in. It does not.
Yeah. And I ended up speaking at her Nomad event, the very first one that she had in Ireland, and I made some great connections there. I met my now partner, so you never know what could happen.
Hey, yes, I love that. Yeah. The other thing to remember, y'all, is that like networking is not just people at your level
Hi,
or
can you
senior.
answer my question?
Sorry, I'm gonna have to ask you to go on mute. We don't have people come off mute for these chats, but thank you so much for your interest. I really appreciate it. If you have a question, I would love to see it. Throw it into the chat feature. All right. So what I wanted to know, or what I wanted to highlight, was you're not just networking with people at your level and senior, right? Because like that, the number of people in the population that are younger than you at work is only going to keep growing as you keep getting older. So I think it's important that we remember that just because someone works in the mailroom, let's say, that doesn't mean that they don't all like too many negatives. Everybody that you meet knows something that you don't. So if you keep that forefront in mind and realize that you can learn something from everybody, and it doesn't have to be the linchpin to your next like major business move, it takes the pressure off trying to get like value, quote unquote, out of these conversations, and makes it more about, hey, that's person, and I'm interested in them, and you're kind of showing that you're a decent person and would think about them as well. So yeah. All right, looking at the notes here. Let's see. Oh, that's the other thing I wanted to tell you all. When you had said something about in-person events, especially if you're an introvert, okay, and you don't like events, I am the introvert's extrovert, okay, and I will tell you how I run our events, and it is absolutely how other companies run theirs too. If you go to one of these events and you don't know anyone and you are absolutely miserable, find someone with a name tag that's running the event and say, hey, can you find me someone to talk to? Because I have been that person. I will go up and say that, but a lot of people don't want to put someone on the spot. They don't want to be like, are you lonely? You look weird by yourself, because that's not what's happening. But go to that person, say, I need somebody to talk to, and they will give you someone to talk to. Okay. It's literally part of their job. Like, it's not a big deal. You're not embarrassing yourself. Nobody here knows anyone. You're all supposed to be meeting people. So, like, it's totally cool. Okay, enough grandstanding from me.
That's a really good point, actually. Because I love connecting people. I genuinely I think it's an ego thing. If like I connect to people and they get along, I'm like, that's thanks to me. I did that. So so, so don't think that you're like asking for a lot. The person's probably getting out of it as much as you're going to get out of it. And that's another good way of networking as well, of introducing someone to someone else, whether that's
Yes.
you think it's a romantic connection, a friend connection, a professional. Just think Meg and Michelle would get on. Let's introduce them. And it's
Yeah.
as simple.
Yeah. So simple, y'all. And truly, like, the people that are running these events, they want people to be meeting other people. So, like, it is in their best interest to make sure the event goes smoothly. That's all we ever want, is to get y'all connecting with each other. So truly, if you don't know who to talk to, especially if you're like, I don't want to tell anybody I'm here by myself, that's fine. Talk to somebody with a badge on, and I guarantee you, they will help you out. Okay, let's see here. Hidden remote job boards. Okay, this person had said they were strictly interested in pursuing a career in HR, but they're unsure if that is even possible with being a digital nomad. Now, obviously, you are the prime example of this. But I was wondering, based on this question, are there any areas or industries that you've seen with remote opportunities that have maybe surprised you, or that you think we would be kind of surprised to hear? The doctor nurse thing really rings a bell for me, because my sister just graduated nursing school and wants to be a travel nurse. And I was like, have you thought about remote?
Yeah, I would urge people. I guess it's different if you are completely if you are targeting a new career, to think about which industries, which roles and which industries land themselves better. But if you are already in HR and it's something that you've decided that you want to do, try and take yourself out of like, it's not possible. I can guarantee you it is. It is just harder. So it's not about I should stop this because it's not possible. It's just about managing its expectations, that getting a HR remote role, work from anywhere, compared to a software engineer remote role is going to be harder. And that is the reality. But I wouldn't let you put that off. If you decided that this is the kind of role I want to do, it is possible. You just might have to work a little bit harder at it.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Okay, we are at time. I want to make sure that we're respecting your calendar. Michelle, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for giving us your time and your expertise today. There's also a ton of work that goes in on the back end of this, prep wise. So, Michelle, it's obvious, y'all, came more than prepared for today. Thank you so much. This has been wonderful. I really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit more, and I can't wait to check out some of the job boards that you mentioned as well. So, thank you so much for that, Michelle.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to write in the chat the email address. If everyone has got any follow-up questions you want to ask, then just drop us an email. But thank you.
Don't forget, y'all, check out the links that we've dropped in the chat. There'll also be a bunch of links left in the emails that we'll send out with the recording when it gets posted to our website. Now, don't forget, you can always check out our YouTube channel. Hi, YouTube. Whenever you'd like, if you want a quick selection of some of our some of our favorite chats. The website, though, is where the mother lode is, so I very much recommend you check that out. Now, whether today was your first Power to Fly event or your 50th, we are incredibly thankful that you chose to spend time with Power to Fly and running remote today. Now, if this is your first, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. And if this was not your first, we can't wait to see you come back here and join us for another event soon. Go ahead, have a safe, happy, healthy rest of the day, week, and weekend, or whatever day you deserve. And we'll be here when you get back. Bye, y'all.
Bye.